All right. Hey, friends. We are in day 6 of the federal government being shut down. It is probably a sign of exactly how unhinged Trump round 2 has been. I almost said how unhinged the Trump round 2 years have been, but of course it hasn't been years. It's been less than 9 months so far. But it's certainly a sign of exactly how unhinged those 8.5 months have been. That unlike every other government shutdown I can remember from my entire life, this really is not dominating political news. Like if you go to the New York Times website, which I just refreshed a couple minutes ago, right? You hear the headlines, right? Illinois sues Trump over guard deployments. There's this Ghislaine Maxwell thing, Supreme Court tests of presidential power. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You have to scroll down 5 headlines to even get to the shutdown. Right? And look, I can see why. In general, in the last decade of, since Trump got down off the escalator, political news cycles have sped up like crazy compared to even like 2014. It's hard to remember what political news cycles were like in 2014. There's just been so much absolutely bonkers shit going on every minute of every day that it's hard to keep track of it all. I remember during Trump's first term thinking about this, like how no news story seemed to last more than a couple of days. The president got caught paying hush money to a porn star, which, I feel like the 90s, 2000s, early 2010s, that would have been a good, year of news if that had happened with any president. And within like 72 hours, right? It was like a memory of something that had happened in 2010. It's like, oh yeah, Stormy Daniels, I remember her. And it had just been completely erased by like 20 other things that had happened over the course of those 72 hours. So it could be hard to remember just how different that was from my entire lifetime experience of how day-to-day political bullshit worked before 2015. And of course, all of that has been even more true of the no guardrails second round version of Trump, when all the people in his administration most bound and determined to prove me wrong for ever saying that fascism was hyperbole are in the driver's seat, right? And they seem to be, taking special pleasure in trying to prove me wrong about that. And there are daily news stories about things like helicopter raids based on ethnic profiles of Mexican Americans, where every single person in an entire apartment complex in Chicago is taken into custody based on nothing. And little kids are pulled naked from their beds and kept zip tied for hours. And Kristi Noem publishes like a video, like overhead, like aerial video of the raid starting to brag about it on social media. Do a little victory round. And then you refresh, you hit refresh on a news website, and Trump is talking about sending troops into another American city where crime is actually down because Stephen Miller saw a tweet of someone doxing an ICE agent, and then you refresh the website again 10 minutes after that, and on and on and on like that. That gives you this overwhelming feeling that you really don't feel like you can hold on to anything for longer than a minute. So like I can see how it gets to the point where you have to scroll 5 stories down on the New York Times website to even get to any mention of the shutdown. But the government is indeed shut down. and there's obviously a lot to say about this, less even in terms of the play-by-play of it, but just in terms of the core issues at stake and how those are being represented by everybody involved. So let's start with the Republicans. So this is Mike Johnson explaining what what the shutdown is about, what the issue and dispute is, as he wants to represent it.
The Democratic proposal is designed to prevent millions of Americans from losing their health insurance, losing Medicaid coverage, or paying higher health care premiums. Why are you against that?
That's an absurd statement, what you said there. Let's be clear about what happened last night, George. No, George, let me tell you what happened last night. Everybody can go and review the facts for themselves. 44 Senate Democrats voted to reject a clean, nonpartisan continuing funding resolution to keep the United States government open. The Democrats said instead that they wanted to give health care to illegal aliens.
The illegal aliens thing is just a lie, or it's certainly at least 90% a lie. The germ of accuracy in it has absolutely nothing to do with anybody who's actually an illegal alien, like they're present in the United States without any legal permission to be here, and just escaping being deported until somebody notices them. The issue is about people who are applying for asylum, which you have a legal right to do under American and international law, and who the courts have said, right, it's like, well, they have a right to be here while their asylum cases are being heard, and about those people's health care. And so Johnson is just conflating the two categories here, which is what the Republicans always do on this. Basically, they say, well, they don't think those people should have the legal right to be in the U.S., so they're just going to kind of anticipate what they, how they want things to change, and call them illegal aliens. And of course, meanwhile, the core issue about healthcare, I mean, the vast majority of the people affected by this are not even legal asylum seekers, never mind actually illegal aliens. They're just anybody, just regular American citizens buying health insurance off the Obamacare state exchanges, which is certainly what my podcaster ass does in California, because there had been these enhanced subsidies to help people pay for them that had been in place, and that clean CR that he's talking about, in other words, the continuing resolution to keep government funding going, until there's like an actual real budget, that so-called clean CR had taken away the existing levels of subsidies for buying health insurance off the exchanges, meaning that for millions and millions of American citizens, I mean, forget the asylum seekers, your health insurance from the exchanges, without those subsidies, right? If you don't get it from the employer, you have to buy it from the Obamacare exchange, is going to more than double for a lot of people. I mean, I've seen some where it's like tripled, on some exchanges, and it's just becomes absurdly unaffordable. So a lot of people are going to go without health insurance, and of course, this is coming right after Medicaid cuts from the big beautiful bill, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the vast majority of the issue about healthcare has absolutely nothing to do with anybody who's not a citizen. Now, I myself, as a fringe radical socialist weirdo, think that if somebody gets sick, they should be treated regardless of their immigration status, right? So I would actually be in favor of saying that that you shouldn't be checked for your immigration papers when you go see a doctor, and in a decent society, that's money should not exchange hands at the doctor. So I am willing to stake out that crazy radical fringe position, but that's really not what's at stake in this. See, Drea says, I'm pretty sure, quote, illegal aliens, unquote, get free healthcare, a free house worth at least $450,000, and free yearly 2-week vacation at Disneyland. Yes, that is exactly what the Democrats were demanding. That's correct. Virtuoso, Ben, you misspelled the title. It's actually Democrats are pussies. No comment on that. And to be fair, I mean, look, for now, they're not relenting yet. I mean, when I was planning the stream, right, and when I was teasing it on Friday, I said, hey, for all we know, they're going to fold over the weekend because that just kind of seems like what they do. But to be fair, they have not lived down to that expectation yet. I do have some big issues with how they have been handling it, but they have not actually folded on the core issue, at least yet.
Instead of keeping critical services provided for the American citizens. That's what happened, plain and simple. Every Democrat in the House, except one, voted against the clean continuing resolution. It was nonpartisan in nature. There are no policy writers on it that Republicans favored. It's exactly what Chuck Schumer and other Democrats voted for in March, but they've changed their tune. They changed their tune because Chuck Schumer is having political problems right now. That's just a simple fact, and everybody knows that he's trying to outrun the far left portion of his base, so he's decided to inflict pain on the American people. That's the reality of what we're facing.
Yeah. Chuck Schumer, well known for trying to stake out positions on the far left. That's why if you ever see a picture of Chuck Schumer going to his office at the Senate, he's usually draped in an American flag with some pin. He's usually draped. Sorry, not an American flag. He's usually draped in a Palestinian flag, and he's wearing some pins about Medicare for All and Green New Deal. That's the usual Schumer uniform, Palestinian flag, and the Medicare for All and Green New Deal pins. Because the man has always been interested, above all else, in appealing to the far left.
Here are the facts. The proposal does not provide health care for illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants cannot buy health care under the Affordable Care Act. They cannot receive health care subsidies. No. Illegal immigrants are ineligible for Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Program. The Democratic bill does not make them eligible.
It does, actually, because what it does is it unwinds the changes that Republicans put into the big, beautiful bill, the big signature legislation that we passed and signed into law on July 4th. That has been very successful in shoring up Medicaid for the people who are actually eligible to receive it. What we did in the bill, and the CBO just verified this 3 weeks ago, the Congressional Budget Office, the nonpartisan arbiters of everything up here, they said that those provisions have helped to reduce premiums. Why? Because we got ineligible recipients off of Medicaid, illegal aliens, and able-bodied young men who are riding the wagon who are not eligible to be there. Medicaid is intended for specific populations of U.S. citizens. That is young, pregnant women who are down on their luck, the disabled and the elderly. Those resources.
Just want to pause to note here that the people that Mike Johnson thinks should be able to get free health care, like let's think about how insanely narrowly he's drawing those categories. Young, pregnant women who are down on their luck, right? So if you're pregnant but not down on your luck, sorry, bitch, you got to pay for your own health care, right? You have to be both, right? Like if you're pregnant but not like particularly poor, right? Or again, that thing about how terrible it is for able-bodied men to be on Medicaid is really chilling, right? You're saying that there should be work requirements for being able to go to see the doctor if you're sick without being bankrupted, right? I mean, this is like saying that the fire department should only come to your house for free if it burns down, if you fulfilled some set of work requirements, if you had a job or you could prove to a bureaucrat that you were actively searching for a job or something like that. That one would think if there's absolutely anything that you should be able to get just for free, just for being a person, it should be getting medical treatment when you need it. I mean, even if you think that people who can afford it should have to pay for it, which I certainly don't, any more than I think that we should be, charging everybody else for the fire department, and the only people who should get the fire, put out at their house for free are the people who can prove that they're below some income threshold. But this idea that, well, look, you're unemployed and lazy, therefore you shouldn't have your health care paid for. You shouldn't, therefore you shouldn't be able to go to see the doctor if you can't afford it otherwise, right? If you you should have been looking for a job, so since you weren't, too bad if you can't afford to go to the doctor, right? You should have thought of that before you made those bad decisions last week, buddy.
Are being drained from those folks, and so we fixed that. We reduced fraud, waste, and abuse in the program. Chuck Schumer's counterproposal on the CR would reverse that. That is a simple fact.
The CBO did not say that about illegal immigrants. You've made your point. The Democrats.
Yeah. So again, Johnson is conflating, what he's doing there, right? He's conflating asylum seekers who have a legal right to stay while their cases are being processed with illegal immigrants. And yeah, it's really grotesque stuff. And especially that like bizarre divide and conquer thing. That's like, oh, look, premiums are going to go down, or, supposedly have gone down already, even though the beautiful bill, I can't believe we still have to call it that, was only just passed, because we're going to kick these people off of their health care. All right. I mean, this really is the meme with the like white worker and the Mexican worker, and the white worker has like one cookie in front of him, and then there's like the Rupert Murdoch kind of oligarch who has like a big plate that's like piled with cookies, and he looks at the white worker, he's like, oh, careful, mate, that guy's going to try to steal your cookie, right? Like you're blaming health insurance costs on like some other poor people getting to be on health insurance when you don't think that they deserve to, right? I mean, this really is just the ultimate divide and conquer bullshit. All right, so that gives you some sense of what the open and forthright forces of evil are saying about this. And obviously Johnson is particularly shameless. But what are the Democrats saying about this? And this is really what I wanted to focus on for this episode, as the title should make clear. Yeah. So if you don't want that guy we just watched to win, right? You don't want healthcare costs to skyrocket for millions of people, mostly citizens. Not that I think that should even matter for this. I think everybody should be able to go see the doctor for free. But if you do care about that, right, overwhelming majority of people impacted are citizens. So if you don't want those people to have to pay, double premiums for healthcare, so a lot of them just won't have healthcare, et cetera, then, as depressing a statement as this is to make, right, you want the Democrats to win, right? Sadly, right, we have two possible outcomes here, and one of them is a lot better than the other one. Even if the better one is still pretty dismal compared to what we actually need. So, what are the Democrats saying? Like, let's go back into the Wayback Machine here to last Tuesday afternoon, 10 hours before the government shut down, and take a look at what the leader of the Democratic Party said. Right, this is Chuck Schumer, who Mike Johnson was talking about before, the leader of the Senate Democrats. And, he's speaking to the assembled cameras, 10 hours before the federal government shuts down. All these federal employees get furloughed. Others who are considered to have essential jobs are actually required to keep working without a paycheck for God knows how long, until one side or the other folds. And if it's the Democrats who fold, it's going to have these dire consequences for healthcare coverage. So this is a tense moment. It's a fraught moment last Tuesday afternoon, just before everything is going to go down. And the general, right, Chuck Schumer, addresses his assembled troops. You think here about, you think here about like, Shakespeare's Henry V. When the eponymous, sorry, not eponymous, that's self-titled, the king who the play is named after, addresses his assembled troops before they head into battle, right? This is, the St. Crispin's Day speech. We happy few, right? Like this is that kind of moment, right? Relative to American electoral politics. So, what does he say? What stirring words does Chuck Schumer say to inspire his troops as they go into battle? Well, let's take a look, shall we?
And before I get into my substantive remarks, I just heard something that Trump said. Here's what he said. We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible and bad for them, and irreversible like cutting vast numbers of people out. Well, there it is. Trump admitted himself that he is using Americans as political pawns. He is admitting that he is doing the firing of people if, God forbid, it happens. He's using Americans as pawns, as I said. Democrats do not want a shutdown. We stand ready to work with Republicans to find a bipartisan compromise, and the ball's in their court. When he says he will do things, he is taking ownership. He is taking ownership.
All right. Now, if that's not the kind of speech that's going to, inspire people to follow the person who gave it to the gates of hell, I just don't know what is, right? That's fills my heart just to hear it. Exactly, Drea. Scotland had Braveheart, and we have Schumer. Freedom, right? So just in case you missed a single stirring word of it, right? Here it is again. Well, before I get to my substantive remarks, I just heard something Trump said. Here is what he said. We could do things during the shutdown that are irreversible and bad for them, and irreversible like cutting vast numbers of people out. Well, there it is. Trump himself admitted that he is using Americans as political pawns. He is admitting that he is doing the firing of people, and God forbid if it happens. He is using Americans as pawns. As I said, Democrats do not want to shut down. We stand ready to work with Republicans to find a bipartisan compromise, and the ball is in their court. When he says he will do things, he is taking ownership. He is taking ownership. There we go. There we go. That is General Schumer addressing the troops 10 hours before battle. And I gotta say, Top Dem's messaging has not gotten any better since Tuesday afternoon. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, I guess credit where credit's due, seems a bit more alive than Schumer when he talks, but he's honestly seemed to be at least as preoccupied by being outraged about a juvenile deepfake video that Trump posted parodying him, right? It's like Jeffries in a sombrero, than he is about the shutdown itself and the underlying issue about healthcare coverage. So, Schumer's, Jeffries, and other senior Democrats always mention healthcare at some point in their statements, but it's hard to escape the impression that their real passion is reserved for issues of process and decorum. Right? They seem to be especially concerned with establishing that the other side drew first blood. I mean, think about that couple minutes of Schumer that we just watched. What does he actually care about in those couple minutes? He cares about showing, no, see, we didn't start it. They started it. We want a bipartisan compromise. They're the ones being difficult, right? That's how he's framing the issue, right? Like that's how he's framing what is at stake here. Thank you. Thank you, Red Dog. T-shirt is awesome. Got this at Nuclear Waste in Tijuana. It's a wonderful store with a lot of shirts like this. So that's the framing that you're getting from top Democrats. We didn't start it. They started it. We want a bipartisan compromise. They don't want to start it. They don't want a bipartisan compromise. They'll mention healthcare, but the real fire or, whatever the closest thing to fire is you find in any of this is for these issues about decorum and process and who's being reasonable and who's violating precedent. Now, we've always negotiated before and they're not willing to negotiate. That's the real sin here, the lack of negotiation. And I just want to contrast that with the alternate messaging that we're getting from Bernie Sanders and AOC. Right? So this is a video that Bernie Sanders posted late last week after the shutdown had started.
Hey everybody, I was walking here in Washington, D.C., and who did I bump into? One of my favorite members of the United States Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
And one of my favorite senators.
All right. Anyhow, as everybody knows, we are now in a government shutdown. Republicans are attacking Alexandria, attacking me. Why didn't you vote for this clean CR to keep the government open?
Well, there's nothing clean about it. This is one of the dirtiest tricks that is being pulled on the American people right now. Starting today, October 1st, and throughout the rest of the month, Americans across this country are going to start getting notifications that their insurance premiums are up to doubling. We're talking about—
Say that again.
Your insurance, your monthly insurance premiums are going to double for millions of people across the country.
At a time when we are already paying by far the highest prices in the world for healthcare, at a time when people can't afford it right now. So what happens?
That means people getting bankrupt over chemotherapy, people going to the pharmacy and not being able to get their insulin. And frankly, it means a lot of Americans are going to be in danger. And Republicans want us to rubber stamp that. So what are we going to say to that, Bernie?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not only be in danger. Let's be clear. And doesn't make me happy to have to say this, but there have been studies out there that when you combine doubling premiums for the ACA and then throwing 15 million people off of Medicaid and the ACA, the result is, according to studies at Yale and the University of Pennsylvania, 50,000 low-income, working-class Americans will die every single year. All right? If you don't have the money to go to a doctor and you're sick, you die. And that's what we're looking at. That's what this clean bill is about.
And so Republicans want us to rubber stamp that. And we're saying no. We need to stand up for the American people. We need to stand up for our healthcare system. And if they want our votes, they need to make sure that we're protecting every American and making sure that we can do what we can to continue to make healthcare accessible, affordable, as we work to make it a human right for all.
Right. So let me just back that up. Remember, right now, our healthcare system is broken. Right now, we're the only major country on earth not to guarantee healthcare to all people. And these guys want to make it even worse. We're not going to let that happen.
No, we're not.
Thank you.
Onward.
So I wrote an article that came out at the end of last week for Jacobin, same title as this episode, Democrats Are Screwing Up the Shutdown. And the core of what I pointed out in the article is just the contrast, like the chasm between those two messages, right? What you saw in those couple minutes of Chuck Schumer that I played for you a minute ago, and what you saw in that video that Bernie posted, right? The Bernie video was over in less than 3 minutes. But it was so effective, right? Like the difference between this simple and powerful message in the Bernie video and most of what's been coming from top Democrats is so stark, right? On the one hand, Schumer, when he says he will do things, he is taking ownership, versus Bernie. If you don't have the money to go to a doctor and you're sick, you'll die. Right? Anyone thinking about which political shape they want the opposition to the Trump administration to take should think really hard about that contrast. Which do you suppose is going to be more effective in this fight and all the others to come as the most reactionary and authoritarian administration in recent American history becomes ever more confident and aggressive and starts to do crazier and crazier shit as they are spiraling into right now? Leaders like Jeffries and Schumer, who are spending this moment emphasizing that the shutdown is Trump's fault because he was inflexible about negotiating, and so he, has ownership of the impasse. or leaders like Bernie and AOC who emphasize that it's already a moral obscenity that America doesn't guarantee healthcare to all of its people as a right, and say loudly and clearly that they will be damned if they vote for anything that will make our healthcare system even more cruel than it already is, increase the financial burdens on people who can afford to continue to buy insurance from the exchanges, and sentence to death people who end up not having health insurance at all, not going to the doctor when they need to, and dying of preventable diseases. Leaders whose top concern is making it clear that Republicans, rather than them, are the ones standing in the way of bipartisan compromise, or leaders talking about fighting like hell to make sure that your chemotherapy payments don't bankrupt you. Choose wisely. All right. On that note, I think we are going to call it a day for this short episode today. Going to be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is October 7th. So it is the 2-year mark on the beginning of the genocide in Gaza, and so I want to kind of take a stream to sort of take stock of where everything is there, and look at some of what people who are still in denial about what's going on there, are still trying to justify it, are trying to say about it. So that is going to be tomorrow's show. Red says, on a side note, I found the racist caricature of Jeffries inexplicably funny, but Trump isn't even morbidly funny anymore. Like in the first term, his comedy has been mid. Yeah, I think he's definitely gone downhill. Like he does still have moments where he's funny in a horrible way. Like I don't want to be a hack here and deny that. Like just because the way his brain works is so distinctive, right? There are moments where he ends up saying really funny things, but I mean, look. The high point of Trump's career as an insult comic was the 2016 election cycle, and really not even the general election, the Republican primary, like when he was just plowing through the Republican field. I mean, this is literally the first conversation I ever had with Michael Brooks, was the two of us admitting to each other that whereas we thought he was a monster as president, man, that was first term Trump, wasn't even as bad as this. We both thought he was very funny as an insult comic, but over the years since then, yeah, look, I mean, he has lost some of his touch. I think some of that has to do with actually being president. I think some of it has to do with the fact that he's in severe and obvious cognitive decline. It's weird to me how little I hear anybody talk about that, considering how much we quite rightly talked about it with Biden. And, don't get me wrong, like some of the most extreme ways that manifested with Biden haven't manifested with Trump, but like you just watch any clip of Trump talking now versus in the first term, never mind in like the 90s. It's like, yeah, man, the man's gone through some pretty obvious cognitive decline. All right. So yeah, we are going to cut it there. But I think the new format at the new time is working nicely. We're going to keep that up. I am not certain if we're going to be able to do an episode on Wednesday because I am going to be on a plane when we normally do it. It's possible I can do a pre-record or something. I'm just not sure about that. But otherwise, should be good for every day, every weekday this week at this same time slot. So that is 11:30 a.m. on the East Coast, 8:30 a.m. here on the West Coast. So we'll be back at that same time slot tomorrow to talk about Gaza. And sorry, it's really inappropriate time to laugh. I just saw this comment. Oh no, not lesser evilism. God forbid that you should make rational calculations about which of the evils you're facing would be worse, and try to avoid the worst one while you fight for something better. But in any case, so I am going to cut it there for today. I will see you back here tomorrow. Left is best.